Oberyn Martell stole our hearts in the book and show, only to die really quickly. But before he died, he had 40 plus years behind him where he was a respected warrior with a fearsome reputation, a proud father, and an amazing man. This video, let's talk about the Red Viper. By the time we see Oberyn, he is around 42 years old with a lined face, thin eyebrows, black viper eyes, a sharp nose, and lustrous black hair with a little silver that recedes from his brow into a widow's peak. But before we knew him, he had an interesting life. Oberyn was born into House Martell, one of the great houses of the Seven Kingdoms and the rulers of Dorne. He was the third-born child to the Princess of Dorne, who ruled the region, and her consort. His brother Doran came before him by 10 years, and his sister Ilia only by 1. Given the amount of miscarriages and difficulties with pregnancies in general his mother had, Doran had not expected his brother or sister to live. Though Oberyn and Ilia were inseparable, likely due to being so close in age, Doran and Oberyn also had much love for each other, but some pretty stark differences. While his older brother was cautious, reasoned, subtle, deliberate, and lazy to a degree, Oberyn was always considered half-mad, deadly, unpredictable, and dangerous. We don't know much of Oberyn's early years, but we do know Doran, being a decade older, remembers watching them play in the Water Gardens. Later, Oberyn was fostered at Sandstone. At around 14 years old, Oberyn, along with his sister, mother, and her consort, went to castles looking for potential marriage candidates for his sister. Which, of course, Oberyn spent the time mocking her suitors relentlessly, as all good brothers do. The names he gave them were hilariously awful. Squire Squishlips, Little Lord Lazy Eye, and the Whale That Walks. The only suitor Oberyn considered halfway presentable was Baelor Hightower, a pretty young man who his sister quickly fell half in love with. Then the poor boy had the misfortune of farting in their presence. Oberyn quickly named him Baelor Breakwind, and soon after Ilia could not look at him without laughing. So that was the end of that potential match. Later in life, Oberyn would agree that his name-calling was a bit inappropriate, and he was a monstrous young fellow who should have had his vile tongue sliced out. However, Oberyn believes that there was something else going on, that these ill-looking suitors were given to them on purpose, so that after seeing all the pimply, awful ones, they would be starving for the feast. The main course being Casterly Rock, where Tywin's twins lived. After visiting Starfall, the Arbor, Old Town, the Shield Islands, and Crackhall, they at last visited Casterly Rock, where Tywin Lannister, who was currently the hand of King Aerys II, ruled as Lord. Oberyn's mother and Tywin's wife, Lady Joanna Lannister, were good friends. They had been at court together as girls, companions to Princess Rhaella, and there was hopes of a match between the children to bring the families closer. Oberyn believed that his mother meant to match him with Cersei and or Ilia with Jaime. Their timing was horrible, however. Lady Joanna had just given birth to Tyrion and died in childbirth. She left behind an infant and her 8 or 9-year-old twins, Jaime and Cersei. There were talks of maybe not going to the Westerlands after they heard the news while in Old Town, but Oberyn's mother sailed on. Upon arriving at Casterly Rock, Tywin ignored the family the entire time they were there after he commanded for his brother, Kevan Lannister, to entertain them. Oberyn was given a cell that was dark and windowless, much like a dungeon, but he had a feather bed and Moorish carpets. Prince Oberyn recalls that the Westerland skies were too gray, the women too chaste, the food too bland, and the wines too sweet. But he considered Tyrion the most disappointing of all. They had been in Old Town when he was born, and the whole city had talked about the monster that had been born to the king's hand. Rumors had swirled that he had a stiff, curly tail like a swine's, a monstrous huge head that was half again the size of his body, that he had thick black hair and a beard, an evil eye, teeth so long he couldn't close his mouth, lion claws, and lastly, both a vagina and a penis. Oberyn and Ilia finally got a peek at this monstrous baby when Cersei promised to show them what Tyrion looked like. The day before they were to sail proved the best time, and both Jaime and Cersei took Ilia and Oberyn to the nursery. The wet nurse tried to send them off, but Cersei, with her usual charm, threatened the woman. After that, Cersei undid Tyrion's clothes to give them a look. But while Tyrion's head was larger than most, there was no tail, no beard, no teeth or claws, and nothing between his legs but a tiny pink cock. Though he did have some black fuzz on his scalp and one evil eye. The letdown for Oberyn was immediate. After all the whispers, Tywin's baby was simply a hideous red infant with stunted legs. The baby was so lacking the features of a monster that his sister Ilya, instead of gasping or screaming in horror, made the noise that young girls make at the sight of infants. Oberyn, very let down, commented that Tyrion seemed like a poor sort of monster, but Cersei quickly replied that the baby had killed her mother, and she began to twist his cock so hard that Oberyn thought she would pull it off. Luckily, Jaime stopped her, and Cersei told them that it didn't matter, as the baby would likely die soon. Years later, Oberyn's mother would tell him on her deathbed about the meeting with Tywin at Casterly Rock. After Oberyn's mother waited as long as was decent, she talked about the marriages. Lord Tywin refused, saying his daughter Cersei was meant for Rhaegar. When she asked about Jaime, Tywin offered Tyrion instead. This offer she took for an outrage, so they left without any marriage arrangements. Moving forward, now let's talk about how he earned the nickname the Red Viper. Oberyn had a taste for women. At 16, his eyes fell upon Lord Ironwood's paramour. Old Lord Ironwood was a huge man with a short temper and a fierce reputation. Due to this transgression, a duel was demanded, but as Oberyn was young and of high birth, it was only to first blood instead of to the death. Well, both men dueled, took cuts, and decided their honor had been satisfied. However, while Oberyn's wounds healed and he made a full recovery, for some reason Lord Ironwood's wounds festered and soon killed him. Now, the man was old, but that didn't stop men from whispering that Oberyn had poisoned his sword, ensuring the man would die if cut. Afterwards, friend and foe would call him the Red Viper. And fun fact, Oberyn actually milked the local vipers for their venom. Though there was no proof that he used poison, something had to be done, at least in show, about the Lord's death. As a temporary exile, though no one called it that, Oberyn was sent to Old Town and then Lys, and Prince Quentyn, Doran's son, was sent to Ironwood to get rid of any bad blood caused by Oberyn's actions. The prince's legend would only grow darker from there. Many knew of his battles, duels, horses, tourneys, and love life. Oberyn quickly became known as an exceptional fighter that was renowned for his skill and speed with sword and spear. He studied at the Citadel, where he had the fortune to see the Citadel's copy of Lives of 4 Kings, and forging 6 links in his maester's chain before he just grew bored of it and decided, Essos is where he can have the most fun. Oberyn used his time traveling the Free Cities to learn the poisoner's trade, and if the rumors are true, art's darker than that. He rode with the Second Sons for a time, soldiered in the Disputed Land across the Narrow Sea, and then formed his own company. At one point, Oberyn would acquire a black stallion with a mane and tail the color of fire. He could be seen wearing a shirt armored with overlapping discs of bright copper, a pale red silk cloak, a steel round shield of the Dornish style decorated with the sigil of House Martell, and a visorless helm adorned with a copper sun when in battle. While fighting, it would be common to see him wield an ash spear, 8 feet long, with a steel spearhead and spike, and wear supple leather, flowing silk, and light armor. For tourneys, we know he was unhorsed by Prince Rhaegar Targaryen and Sir Barristan Selmy at the tourney at Storm's End. He also attended the tourney of Harrenhal in 281 AC, where he danced with the Shara Dane. We also know Oberyn was responsible for refueling the feud between the Martells and the Tyrells. Tension would rise between the Dorne and the Reach again when Prince Oberyn crippled the heir to Highgarden. At the tourney, Willis Tyrell, heir to Highgarden, was made to compete by his father before he was really ready to do so. Though Oberyn hit Willis's breastplate clean, the heir's foot got caught, and as he fell, his horse came down on top of his leg. This crippled him. Oberyn sent for a maester afterwards, but it was all he could do to save the boy's leg. The knee was past mending. However, Willis held no ill will towards Oberyn, and the two sent letters to each other pretty regularly. Turned out they both shared an interest in fine horse flesh. Interestingly enough, Oberyn, over the years, would also develop some strong opinions about the Targaryen kings. believing that certain maesters were too kind to King Viserys II, who he claims did nothing once he got the throne. He also didn't really like Baelor the Blessed, who he understands why the vipers never bit. He asked Sansa, "If you were a viper, my lady, would you want to bite a bloodless stick like Baelor the Blessed?" Now let's briefly touch on sex and his children. Though, not with his children. All the while Oberyn was having a good time, he would continue to have sex with both men and women, leaving bastard girls all over Dorne, obviously only when he slept with the women. These daughters were known as the Sand Snakes, and as far as it is known, he only ever fathered 8 daughters. Oberyn was different than most other lords, as he took responsibility for his bastard children, seeking to raise them, teaching them how to defend themselves, and giving them independence in growing up. He told them, "If you would wed, wed. If not, take your pleasure where you find it. There's little enough in this world. Choose well, though. If you saddle yourself with a fool or a brute, don't look to me to rid you of him. I gave you the tools to do that yourself." Oberyn also looked out for his niece, Arianna Martell. When she, frustrated and wanting to marry, went to go meet the crippled heir of Highgarden Willis, with Tienne's help, Prince Oberyn caught them at Bath and brought them back. Besides that, Oberyn always had stories he would share with the children. Though some of these girls would be born after Robert's Rebellion, and obviously Arianna attempting to sneak away, I feel it is best to end on Robert's Rebellion. When Robert's Rebellion broke out in 282 AC, it isn't known where Oberyn was. He could have been in Essos or in Dorne. While there was no evidence he could find, the whispers and gossip claim that Sir Gregor Clegane and Amori Lorch had killed Ilya and her children at the end of the rebellion. After hearing of Ilya and her children's brutal murder and the death of the Mad King, Oberyn attempted to raise an army to crown Viserys Targaryen, though in the current times of the books, no one really speaks of it. Ravens were set to fly, and riders rode with secret messages to begin the uprising. But the new hand, Jon Arryn, managed to travel to Sunspear with Prince Lewin's bones in the following year. He sat down with Prince Doran and kept the peace. Robert Baratheon never went to Dorne afterwards, and Oberyn seldom left it. Despite this, Oberyn never let go what happened to his sister and her children, desiring revenge. He left Dorne, a rare act after Robert's Rebellion, when his brother Doran and Oberyn made a plan to end the reign of the Baratheons and destroy House Lannister. Oberyn supposedly traveled to Braavos, where Viserys and Daenerys were being taken care of by Willem Darry. There, Willem and Oberyn, along with the Sea Lord of Braavos as a witness, signed a secret marriage pact between Viserys and Arianna Martell in return for Doran's help in taking the Iron Throne one day. From then on, Oberyn would visit his brother in the Water Gardens twice a fortnight. When the books begin, Oberyn was still hungry for revenge for the death of his beloved sister. So that is Oberyn Martell before the books. Please like the video, subscribe, and come back for more videos.